Hey, what's up, nerds? This is Ghoulie here with another DK PvP video. This time we're going to be covering the Frost DK PvP gameplay, just based on some messages that I got as far as what would be an appropriate time to switch to Frost, or how much haste do you need, what would be the rotation, etc. So we're going to go over those things, and to answer the initial question right off the bat, I believe 10% haste should be good enough right now. It's easily attainable. You could probably reach that within your first week of actually playing your Death Knight. It's just the haste benefits from Unholy in my previous video through Runic Corruption seemed a lot better at the time. Just purely based on that, Unholy was a much more viable spec. But should your gear progress as far as gaining that haste that we used to have in Legion, that's going to get you to the point where Frost Decay is much more fun to play, actually usable. You can sustain your burst and then just sustain damage, period. The entire concept of Frost Decay PvP is using your Breath of Sindragosa and then extending the life of your Remorseless Winter and using runes at the same time. So lining up your abilities with Breath of Sindragosa as well as Pillars of Frost and Remorseless Winter, that's where our big damage is going to come. So right now it's very easy for other classes to reach #1 damage meters as far as like flavor of the month classes go, like your Arcane Mage, see what else, Arms Warriors, and BM Hunters. Those tend to be the three classes that always start off X packs like top of the list. But as they get nerfed and DKs are forgotten about, our damage and ability to dominate battlegrounds just starts to rise. So as far as burst goes, you're going to see rogues hitting eviscerates for over 20k, arcane blasts over 20k, but that's their burst. So when it comes to sustained damage, that's where DKs tend to actually take over the damage meters. So the Frost Fevers we have on everybody, the Howling Blasts that are going out, the Remorseless Winter damage, and then just straight up consecutive obliterates on targets. That's where the DK gameplay, and that's where Frost Decay becomes much more fun to play. Instead of just melting one person and waiting 5 minutes or 3 minutes. So your two main methods of complying with that kind of damage is Breath of Sindragosa on your target and also Remorseless Winter. So your Breath of Sindragosa and your setup for that with Pillars of Frost and Remorseless Winter, that's going to be your key damage ability. So when you know your target is completely fucked, they've used their ability, they've blinked, they've sprinted, they've jumped out of the way, they've used their ice block, they've bubbled, all that's done, that's when you want to use your Breath of Sindragosa with Pillars of Frost, a trinket if you had one. If you're an orc, you use your racial. So you want to catch them at a bad time. That's the perfect time to use a breath. And the longer you can sustain that damage from your breath on the target, the faster their health is going to just melt away. So you want to shoot for maybe roughly 20 seconds, and that's just on a really good, like, these guys are rooted to the ground, stunned, can't do shit. Having 20 seconds of a breath is extremely good in a PvP match. It's very tough to survive that kind of damage from a Death Knight. And they'll do everything that they can to make sure that you can't do that, so you have to be careful. And it's okay because it's on a short cooldown, so 2 minutes, that's not that bad. And in the meantime, you'll be lining up your abilities with Remorseless Winter. So just to cover kind of the main moves that Death Knights will use, your Pillars of Frost increases your strength by 10%. I believe that tooltip's not updated. But each rune spent while active increases your strength by an additional 1%. So while you have that up and you have your Remorseless Winter up, you're just pounding out obliterates as you can. And that's where we're going to start building our strength, and our damage just keeps going up. A Remorseless Winter is just an AoE frost damage over 8 seconds that reduces enemy movement speed. And with the talents, we're buffing that, so every rune spent during Remorseless Winter increases its damage by 10%. So you could get to 100% extra damage of that Remorseless Winter during what's not even really the burst, because you're not using your Breath of Sindragosa at all times. So every 20 seconds with the Frozen Center PvP talent, you root them to the ground for 4 seconds. So that's huge for a Death Knight. As far as controlling other players and them getting away from you has been the biggest problem with Frost DKs since inception. So now that we have an effective Chains of Ice, we have an Asphyxiate, we have a Frozen Center ability that's much like the Hunger and Cold ability we used to have a long time ago. We're able to control enemy players and be able to use our Death Grip for interrupts as opposed to just positioning. So that's huge. It's huge for a Frost Death Knight to have that. And as the expansions come out and our gear comes and our haste rises and we can focus on mastery, we're able to do a lot more than we used to as far as Legion and previous X packs up to Wrath of the Lich King before the serious nerfs came. So to walk through the talents just real quick, I've tried all these in a bunch of different configurations, trying to see which one was the best that I like to play with. I would recommend trying this one. You don't have to, obviously. It's just this is what I like to play with personally. So your Inexorable Assault as opposed to the other two. I like having max damage off the first 3 obliterates, and every 8 seconds after that you gain it again. So your first 3 obliterates will get you extra damage. So when you get the jump on somebody that's not particularly expecting that kind of damage, you have 3 maximized obliterates right off the bat, and then 3 more shortly after that aren't under the Inexorable buff, but just consecutive obliterate, 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 move, obliterate, obliterate, obliterate. So sure, a Rogue Eviscerate or a Mage's Arcane Blast are going to mess you up for 20 plus or 20,000 plus damage. But when you throw, say they crit 5 to 8k damage right at 120 6 times in a row, that's going to hurt somebody pretty bad. And that's why I like this one. Horn of Winter, that's what's going to be kind of keeping your moves going, your sustained damage going, especially during Breath or Remorseless Winter buffs. So when you're using those 2 moves separately or at the same time, using your Horn of Winter will kind of keep that going and extend it a little bit further. Your Asphyxiate, you can't not pick that. Avalanche, since we use our Howling Blast a lot, we want to give that extra damage, of course. So whenever that Rhyme procs and you get that crit, you get some extra damage out of your Avalanche ability. Frozen Pulse is great if you're always on the target, which is almost never the case for a Death Knight. So sure, if you're in the middle of a pack of ads in a dungeon, this is great. But if you're not in your PvP and you're being kited because you're a fucking Death Knight, then this one's not going to be as effective, and you'll see that. Frost Scythe is cool to play around with, especially if you're kind of looking for that big crit damage to kind of satisfy you a little bit. As far as sustained damage goes, you want to pick Avalanche just because the more damage you do, the less people are going to survive. But Frost Scythe can be fun if you tie it to killing machine procs only. So there's different ways you can set up DK specs just to go off a little bit to gain more killing machine procs and use Frost Scythe more. However, it's just not as easy or as effective as it is to just run a plain spec just like this. Death Pack instant heal, which is great to have that. Gathering Storm, so buffing, like I said, our Remorseless Winter is key, and then Breath, Sindragosa. I've used these other 2 as far as just trying to gain more damage. And it's cool to have that killing machine proc. Say you're running a Frost Scythe spec, maybe that would be a little bit more effective for you. it's just this one's really the way to go. And even though Breath of Sindragosa got nerfed by 12%, you have to remember that that's only during that one time that you're using this ability. The rest of the time, the rest of the DK damage abilities are fine. They're the way they were. And if you recall the hotfix, everything got increased in damage by 3% recently. So Frost DKs are getting some love. It's just they took down a little bit of the Breath Sindragosa because that's what everybody was using to try and get people to use different specs. But as far as getting that burst out and trying to beat 10k DPS right off the bat during your burst, that's what you want to try to go for, and that's what I'm going to try to do on this target dummy. Rest of the PvP talents aren't too important. Empower Rune Weapon, reducing the cooldown and duration by 50%. That's great. Just to recall, gaining 15% haste and generating 1 rune and 5 runic power instantly in every 5 seconds for 10 seconds. So it's great to have that. It's just you want that on a shorter cooldown to kind of keep things going. And sure, you half-life it, and you half as far as the benefits from it, but 1 minute cooldown, you can't beat that in PvP. Necrotic Aura helps you as far as 8% increased magical damage. Your frost damage is going to be increased 8%. And then as a human, I picked Relentless because I already have my racial. So, like I said, you start off Pillars of Frost. Remorseless Winter, Obliterate. At that point, you can Horn if you want. Really, it depends on the situation that you're in, or you could just wait. Maybe you'll get a Rhyme proc, a Runic Empowerment, gain a rune back. You want to build up your Runic power in case you get into a situation where the player that you're trying to kill has used something that is a defensive cooldown that's expired, etc. So in this situation, this target dummy, I'm going to pretend like they've used their defensive cooldown. It's gone, or they're stunned or something like that, and we're going to roll right into the Breath of Sindragosa. So like I said, the longer you can keep this up and running, do it. Once you see your runic power starting to get around 50 to 40%, that's when you want to use Empower Rune Weapon, and you may have to use Horn of Winter almost within the first 7 seconds of starting this process, and that's fine because you're going to get them all back within a minute anyways. So we'll start it. Pillars, press the wrong button. Remorseless Winter, Obliterate, no Rhyme proc, so we're going to keep rolling. Wait for that cooldown to come down a little bit, and then we'll use our Breath of Sindragosa, Obliterate, Horn, Runic. You see the Runic Empowerments I just got. Breath's still going. Kill the Rhyme procs as they come. Keep rolling. Global cooldown fucked it up, so the Breath is over, and then it's into your Remorseless Winters. So I have high Runic power. We're going to burn that down, and then at this point we'll just wait. So Pillars of Frost is coming back. Our Remorseless Winter is coming back right around the same time. So we want to kind of get in a position where our Pillars of Frost and our Remorseless Winter are lined up. So Pillars of Frost, Remorseless Winter, Obliterate, just keep going. So that's the gist of it. Sorry I fucked it up, but it takes practice. So in another minute, we'll try it again. Always try to line up your Pillars of Frost ability with your Remorseless Winters, because you want to gain and use your runes while those two abilities are up and running. So the longer your Remorseless Winter lasts, the longer your Breath lasts, the better. And do what you can to make sure that those last for a while. Your Pillars of Frost and your Remorseless Winter and your runes aren't always going to line up either. So whenever you have a KM proc, but these are about to come up, save it. Save your runes, and then use it. So I got a 10k crit on that one. That's cool. So let's wait a little bit for those cooldowns to come up. I just pressed that wrong button, but so playing a Death Knight is is really cool, and that's one of the differences between Unholy and Frost, is that you get to jump into the middle of the action, use your ability to start maxing out damage. It's really important for healers to recognize the importance of having a Frost DK up in the shit, and getting those heals on you, obviously, because we're not paladins. We can't just heal ourselves whenever we want. And just the amount of damage that we do is ridiculous, especially if you do things in the proper order, or just things line up perfectly for you. And it's not always going to happen, but when it does, it's really cool. So pillars, Remorseless Winter, obliterate, got a rhyme proc, so I'm going to use my horn there, keep that running. I don't want to go anywhere near 0 on my runic power. So I'm going to hold that rhyme proc, going to keep going, because runic power and sustaining the breath is more important. So keep going, keep that breath going, and the breath is over. So look, I even got to 13k there on the DPS. So it's good. That's where we want to be, damage-wise. So I got 5 seconds on pillars, 12 seconds on Remorseless Winter. So I'm going to wait on the pillars until I have my Remorseless Winter. So KM proc, and I wait until Remorseless Winter. And then pillars, Remorseless Winter, KM proc, obliterate, 10k on that one. Just keep trying to generate runes. That's the whole point, is generating runes for obliterate so you can pump them out. I'm going to save my Horn of Winter, and this is just one of those decisions you want to make, so I got less than 30 seconds on the pillars. At this point, I'm going to use a 20-second cooldown, which is Remorseless Winter. And I'm waiting for that pillars to come back up. That way, I can use that Remorseless Winter and then use the horn to keep that rolling. And that should carry me until Breath of Sindragosa is ready to roll. So, pillars, Remorseless Winter, gonna Frost Strike, start blowing runes. Horn of Winter, kill that rhyme proc. And the reason I let my runic power cap out is because I had runes to use, and that's what's going to extend that breath, or Remorseless Winter. So again, Remorseless Winter, use the KM proc afterwards. And now I'm in a situation where I can look at my Pillars of Frost, see that my breath is ready, and I can coordinate that burst whenever that Pillars of Frost is up. So say he's running, I've caught up to him. I got 3, 2, 1, and I can use that. And I lagged a little bit there, but that's fine. So our breath, use that KM proc, gonna use Empower Rune Weapon, Horn, because I'm getting low on the runic power there. And it's really important. Use all the runes you can, fuck the rhyme proc, until that breath is over and there's nothing you can do, then use that rhyme proc. And that's pretty much it. So I hope this video helps as far as getting comfortable with what to do and how to play. Sit on a target dummy. It doesn't necessarily have to be a BG every time. They have this one here in Borealis near the PvP vendors. You got the ones in your Death Knight town. The reason why I like using this one is it's got this PvP damage in the title of it, so maybe your damage is going to be a little bit different or a little bit more accurate in PvP, so as opposed to using a Dungeoneers, you might get a better assessment of how much damage you're actually going to be doing against an enemy player. And that's pretty much it. So, like I said, I hope this helps, and if you have any questions about DK PvP or gameplay, I've been playing Death Knight for a pretty long time, so I'm sure I can help you out or make a video or maybe teach you how to kill a certain class, certain abilities that you seem to really get encountered by. And please let me know. I hope to see you guys soon. Thanks.